Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover podcast for a very special Halloween edition. Happy Halloween. I am your host, Mark Henry Jr., and we have some Week 8 NFL best bets right here for you guys. So you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod. And you can follow the Painted Lines where you're watching this on YouTube, possibly, or on Twitter at the Painted Lines. Please give at Everything's Fine a follow as well. That is a Philly sports podcast with Kyle Pagan. We have some interesting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so please give that a follow. And please give at Fox PHL Gambler a follow. You can see my content in all those places. I'm doing way too much, but it's football season. And on today's show, we go over my picks for Week 8 in the NFL. And as the Black Eyed Peas once said, let's get it started in here. We're not wasting any time. Let's get right to it. We're not going over the record. Rough day yesterday. We move on. Put that in the back of the brain. At 1 o'clock, I'm all over the Cincinnati Bengals. I like the Bengals first quarter -2.5, first half -5.5, and -8.5 in the whole game. 2 units apiece on each of those bets, so 6 units total on this Bengals game. And most of it doesn't have to do with the Bengals. I have a bunch of stats here. None of them are for the Bengals. So before I get to these stats for the Jets, let me just say that the Bengals are the most surprising team in the NFL, and they've been, the most impressive team in the NFL to this point, in my opinion. And Joe Burrow really does seem like he's going to be a top 10 quarterback as long as health provides it. And that offensive line has done a much better job than any of us expected. So there's plenty of reasons to feel confident in the Bengals going into this game, but most of them for me have to do with the Jets. And the Jets are last in EPA. They're 30th in passing. They're 32nd in rushing. They're 32nd in offensive DVOA. They're 32nd in total DVOA. They're 32nd in points, 31st in yards. This is a terrible Jets team. They're lucky they got that win early on in the year, because if not, I don't know if they're going to win another game. So this could have been a 0-1 team if they didn't get that Titans win. And in the first half of games, the Jets quarterbacks have 0 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And while the Jets have yet to intercept a pass, they are the only NFL team to not have a pick. They have the worst turnover differential in the league. New York has been outscored 44-0 in the first quarter through 6 games. They've been outscored 106-20 in the first half through 6 games. And the Jets have been outscored 151-53 on the season in losses. 3 of those 5 losses for the Jets have come by double-digit points, and that was when they had their starting quarterback. So I think the Patriots roll early and roll big. Bengals. Jesus. The Patriots rolled against the Jets last week, and I think the Bengals do the exact same thing. The Bengals are at -11 full game, which I would still bet, even though I got -8.5, but you should still be able to get first quarter -2.5, first quarter under a touchdown as Bengals lines. So I would look at the first quarter and the first half at this point where the value is before I would look at the full game, but I'm on all 3 because I got the full game early at -8.5. Speaking of another line I got early here, the team total overs in the Titans-Colts game at 1 o'clock. I have Titans team total over 23.5 for 2 units, and I have Colts team total over 24 for 1.5 units. I got these early in the week when Indy was favored by a point. It has since moved to Indy -3, so the Colts team total has moved up a couple points, but you can still get the Titans between 23.5 and 24.5, depending on the book and the juice. So the Titans, the reason I like that total for the Titans is they've scored over this total in the last 6 games. The Titans are 3-1 on the over in their last 4. The Colts have scored over this total in their last 4 games, and 3 of the last 4 Titans-Colts games have went over in this matchup. So I like the over wherever you can get it, but I decided there was some early value earlier on in the week on the team totals instead of the full game over. So take a look at both team totals or just a plain over, whatever you think you could find the most value in on your book. So let's move on to the afternoon slate. And not a lot of 1 o'clock picks there for me. I'm all over that Bengals-Jets game, and I'm all over the over in that Titans-Colts game. So more focused on the afternoon slate than the 1 o'clock slate, which is good. I'll watch the Eagles. They'll depress me. And then I'll focus on gambling at 4 o'clock. At 4:05, I like the Jacksonville Jaguars +3.5 at the Seahawks for 1 unit. Geno Smith, this is the gift that keeps on giving the gamblers. He's contractually obligated to play and lose weird close games. And in the first couple games, he's been an underdog. He's a favorite here. You can't bet Geno Smith as a favorite, and you have to bet against him no matter who's playing. Geno is destined to lose every game that he fills in for us by a field goal. Geno is coming off a game where he went 12 for 22. So usually I wouldn't touch Urban Meyer in Jacksonville and a rookie quarterback heading to Seattle, but Geno Smith it trumps all of that. So I think Jacksonville may have turned the corner a little bit in London and are coming off of a bye. So you have to hope that Trevor Lawrence continues improving and maybe Urban Meyer figures it out. He made a hell of a play call at the end of the London game. So Jacksonville is obviously most vulnerable through the air defensively. And I'm not sure Geno Smith can exploit that. So I'll go with Jaguars plus 3.5 at the Seahawks for 1 unit. I think they win outright. So let's get to my best bet at 405. Another game I got early here. Again, I preach it early and I tweet about all these picks a lot earlier on in the week, and you can follow on Action Network as well. But I like New England plus 6 at the LA Chargers. I got this line early with the Pats at 6. It's dipped down to 4.5. I would still take it at 4.5 pretty happily, but I'm happy I got that extra 1.5 of cushion. This game may be in LA, but you know it's going to be over half Patriots fans at least. A lot of Boston transplants in LA, and a lot of people are going to be making the trip from New England to go to LA as their road game vacation of the year. And the Chargers don't have fans. So it's going to be hard for the Chargers to have more than a half capacity at a home game against any of these teams that have legitimate fan bases. So I really think this is going to be a New England quasi home game. People forget, but Bill Belichick beat the Chargers 45-0 last year. You could look at that two ways. The Chargers will be out for payback is the one way you could look at it. Or number two, Bill Belichick figured out Justin Herbert last year and will do it again. I'm not saying he will shut him out, but I think Bill Belichick and the Pats have shown that they can muck it up against good teams and specifically good offenses. Held the Bucks and Cowboys to low-scoring, close games that they hung in and could have won had a couple bounces gone their way. So I think the same happens here against the Chargers. And even though the Chargers are 4-2 and the Pats are 3-4, these are evenly matched teams. The Chargers are 17th in DVOA, while the Pats are actually better than them in DVOA at 13th. So I think that the Patriots are being a bit disrespected here, and Belichick's good when he's disrespected. 28-14-2 against the spread as an underdog, 23-21 straight up in those games. So I will ride with Belichick when he's being doubted all day. Another stat here from Belichick. Belichick has done well in the past, avoiding a letdown after a big win, going 49, 29, and 3, 63% against the spread since 2003 when coming off of a win of 17 or more points, which obviously they are from last week. So usually teams have letdown spots after those big blowouts that the Patriots had last week, but the Pats and Billy B are usually just getting hot when you see them have a game like that, like they had last week. So I'll ride with Belichick when he's getting hot and getting going in the middle of the season with his team and a young team at that. So I think the Pats cover and win outright. And this could be the run of a little bit of I don't know what their schedule is off the top of my head, but I can see the Patriots going on a little bit of a run here. So let's get to my last pick of the afternoon slate at 425. I like the Washington football team plus 3.5 at Denver. Don't have a lot of stats or reasoning besides the Broncos losing a short rest game against the most banged up team in the league and the Cleveland Browns, who were missing players at QB, running back, wide receiver, and defense. There's not a lot positive to say about Washington, but their defense has been trending in the right direction and are starting to get some pressure. Second in the NFL per PFF at pressure rate. So I'm going to ride with and believe in Heinicke one more time, mainly because I think the Broncos are terrible. Washington is 8th against the rush on defense, and that is how Denver wants to attack you. So you have to throw to exploit Washington's defense. I don't know if Denver and Teddy Bridgewater can do that. So, I mean, another X factor in this game could be Heinicke had 95 yards rushing last week. Maybe that unlocked something a bit in his game that we saw against Tampa last year in the playoffs. I don't know. I'm willing to gamble on Heinicke one more time. Come through for me and the Heinicke Hive one time, Taylor. Washington football team plus 3.5. So before we get to my last pick and before we get to my Sunday night football pick, the Road Warriors afternoon money line parlay. It's the first. I've never had a Road Warriors parlay here, but every road team in the afternoon games on the money line plus 2,500 parlay for 1 unit. So we're going Jacksonville plus 165 at Seattle, New England plus 180 at the Chargers, Washington plus 165 at Denver, and Tampa minus 200 at New Orleans. So that's a 4-team money line parlay, 3 dogs and a favorite, 1 unit to win 25 units at plus 2,500. So getting to my last play here, this is one that's up in the air. On Sunday Night Football, when the line first came out, I put 10 units on the Dallas Cowboys money line against the Minnesota Vikings. When the news started trickling out about Dak's health and maybe Dak doesn't play, I cashed out of 7 of those units. So I left 3 units in there, and then the cash out market closed. So I'm stuck with those 3 units on the Cowboys money line, even if Dak doesn't play. But if Dak does play, this line's going to jump 6 points, 5 points into Dallas being favored by 2 or 3 points. So you could argue that there is a big value in taking Dallas right now on the money line and just hoping Dak plays, or hoping you're quick enough to cash out before the books adjust their lines. That's not really a great hope. But I left 3 units in there. If Dak's announced in, and if this line doesn't skyrocket above 2 points, I will probably be putting a bunch of money back on the money line. So that's the only injury of the day. There's a lot of injuries today, a lot of questionable players. So besides fantasy purposes, the only injury of the day that I think is going to legitimately have a real effect on a game that you want to pay attention to and gamble on accordingly, I think that's the Dallas game, and I think that's Dak Prescott. So that's a 3-unit play on the Cowboys money line, but could be more by the time that game comes around. So in case anyone is joining in late, let me give the summary of my picks. I've got the Bengals -2.5 in the first quarter at the Jets for 2 units. I've got the Bengals -5.5 in the first half for 2 units. And I've got the Bengals -8.5 in the full game for 2 units at the Jets. I also have Indianapolis Colts team total over 24 versus the Tennessee Titans at 1 o'clock, and I have the Titans team total over 23.5 at the Indianapolis Colts at 1 o'clock. And then my next game is the New England Patriots +6 at the LA Chargers, 6 units to win 5.5 units. That is my best bet. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars +3.5 at the Seattle Seahawks, 1 unit at 405. And then I have the Washington football team at 425 for 1 unit, +3.5 at the Denver Broncos. I have the Dallas Cowboys on the money line at the Minnesota Vikings for 3 units. That could grow if we get some positive Dak news throughout the day or closer to the game. And then last but not least, a +2,500 4-way parlay, the Road Warriors afternoon money line parlay. The Washington football team +155 at Denver, Tampa -200 at New Orleans, Jacksonville +165 at Seattle, and New England +180 at the LA Chargers. It's going to be a good day. I can feel it. It's Halloween. It's going to be a good NFL Sunday. Last week was kind of boring. I have a feeling there's going to be a bunch of close games, bunch of fun games, and a bunch of money made here on the Tough Cover podcast. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click, and enjoy the winners.